All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Ultra High Net Worth Clients Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Broadhead. Today, we have the pleasure of talking with Chip Hessenflow. Hey, Chip, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
I'm Chip Hessenflow. I am a financial planner. I'm currently working under Hessenflow Financial Planning and Wealthcare Capital Management. I have about 25 years experience in the industry, and it's been very good to me and been very good to my client.
Awesome. Awesome. And how did you get involved with the industry?
Well, I graduated from college, and I should have gone on to get a graduate degree. That's what I was sitting down. But I ended up going to work for Capital One. They had just been spun off from Sovereign Bank down in Richmond, Virginia, and everything they were touching was gold. And I said, I'm going to go down there and I'm just going to work for a little while and go to graduate school later on. So I never went to graduate school, but I ended up meeting my wife and I moved out to the Chicago area, where I lived for about 25 years and still have the majority of my practice. And, from banking, I went from this rocket ship of a company, which was Capital One, to like this mom and pop regional bank. And it was like horse and buggy, and it was not a spot for me. So my background was economics. I really enjoyed working with people. I really enjoyed explaining economic principles to to people, and financial planning is something for some people. It is kind of a mystery, and I thought it was a very good fit for me, and I got involved with it, and eventually I went independent, and I've been independent for like at least 20, 25 years.
Awesome. What was the motivation to go independent?
Well, I built a book of business for a bank. And banks really don't understand the financial services industry that well. They understand lending, they understand banking services, but financial services parts of their business, they open them and then they close them down or they change the terms. I built up this really, really nice book with really, really nice trails. I pretty much I set up and created the type of practice that you want to have. And they said to me, "Oh, we love what you did. We're going to move your location now, and you get to leave your book, and you get to do it all over again." And I can tell you right now, once you've built a book of business, the idea of wanting to build another one, oh no, 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 it is a terrible, terrible thing to do, to continuously build books of business like that. And so I said, if I was going to build it again, I went independent, which was incredibly difficult, um, but worth it my time. I thought I would have so many more clients so much more quickly uh, than I did, but ultimately I had um, the clients I wanted, and I built the book of business that I want. And my clients have been very good to me. And I will give you a quick story about my first client that came with me. Was this she was in her early 90s, and she goes, "Well, why am I going to go with you?" She goes, and she had been working with me, and she goes, I said back to her, I said, "Because you told me to go independent." And she said, "Oh, that's right, I did, didn't I?" She became my first client, and she passed away probably about 10 years ago. Very, very wonderful lady. Certainly
Did she
a
make it
wonderful
to
mentor to
100?
me. Huh?
Did she make it to 100?
No, I think she got to about 94, 95
Okay. All
years
right.
old.
So
She
pretty good.
came from the most humble beginnings back in Nebraska. They truly were poverty, poverty, poverty. And she ended up moving to the city and built something that is far beyond what mortal men do. And it's still being used today, with thousands of people going through it every single day. And truly, every time I sat down with her, she'd say, "Okay, now where are we going on with this?" And she had all these questions she had wanted to ask. She could barely see. She had this machine that would blow up the contracts and everything, and she's asking me questions. And then she'd sit me down and say, "Okay, now I'm going to mentor you for a little while and tell you why you're a good person. And these are the areas I think you should go and be part of society in." And so she was, as much as you're helping clients. In many ways, they look at you and want to get you involved in other stuff.
That's awesome. So the bank really kind of helped you out there because they're like, hey, we're gonna take away this book of business that you worked really hard to build, and we want you to do it again. And you're like, nah, if I'm doing that again, I'm doing it with my own rules. So they kind of did you a huge favor there.
Well, yes and no. If I could go back and slap me around a little bit because I was younger, I wish I would have had a mentor who really could have helped because maybe they would have sat me down and said, "Hey, listen, this is a big deal for them to do this, um, but they want you to be successful. They want you to be here. I want to teach you how to play the game of corporate America because that's exactly what corporate America can do. Corporate America can build you up and then they can weed you out. Now, that gives you the ability to go independent and do it yourself. But I can tell you, I will never have the money of Fidelity, and I will never have the money of Schwab. Um, so the idea that I'm going to outmarket these people or have the type of marketing budget that's going to be able to move the needle like they are, it's not going to work. People come to me because they either want a service that they want their hand held while they're doing it, or they're looking for my expertise or how I can find connections to accomplish what they want to do. It's not necessarily, like I said, because I'm not Fidelity. I just don't have that type of resource behind me. I have resources behind me that we can do the things, and we use those firms for us. But the idea that I'm going to outmarket them is just not it's not reasonable.
Got it. Can you share like what you learned, working in corporate America that helped you to build your independent business,
So as a
independent
new
practice?
advisor, you're getting all these ideas. So when I graduated from college, I have this economics degree. And my internship was actually working with a financial advisor who was very successful in the DC area. And she had a radio program. So we were on WPGC, which is a radio station that still exists today. So it was a big one. And we would go on and do a Saturday and Sunday morning radio program on financial planning topics. And that's wonderful because I've gone from some concepts that I learned in school because markets work and how to create portfolios and why more liberal markets, open markets work better than uh, other types of markets. We get all these wonderful tools or ways of thinking about things, but we're not filling out applications and we're not getting volume. So the beauty of talking about it in the financial planning radio program that we were doing at the time was I got a lot more practical work there. But when I got to the bank, it gave me volume. And you cannot underestimate what volume can do for you. You've got notes you've got to fill out. You've got paperwork you've got to work with. You've got office. You've got compliance. You've got meetings you've got to go to. Most businesses, while we certainly are very busy at times, don't work on the type of volume that a bank with lots and lots of customers who ne- need your service. So it gave me this, I would say, a step up in the sense of knowing how to run a practice from the practical point of view. So I had the theoretical from college. I had some conceptual parts from the radio program I got to do when I got out of school. And then I got volume when I worked for the bank. And that was incredibly helpful. And when went independent, I'll even add, I had to figure out how I wanted to run my practice. And I, that's a big question. Are you a wealth management firm, as in money management is going to be uh, your focus, where you're going to make the trades, you're going to do all that work, or are you going to be financial planning focused and outsource, money management, and things of that nature. And I mean, I that was the most, when I say most challenging, the most thoughtful decision that I made when I went independent. And something I'll mention on that also is your goal when working with clients is to remove risk from their life. And so I could do it on my own, but I recognized that there was a true risk involved in that. And the risk, in my opinion, was I walk across the street and I get hit by a car. Now, I'm either, in the hospital for months at a time recovering, or I'm dead. Well, that's a risk that my clients would have to take if they went with me as an individual one-shot person. So I ended up having to find a strategy of how do I take away that risk? And what I did was I found ultimately a company that I was willing to work through. Originally, I worked through a broker-dealer, but I eventually funneled my stuff through them only as an RIA, where I'm a fee-only advisor. And that was a process. If I would get hit by a car, or if I was no longer around to be able to help clients, there are a number of advisors across the United States who do the same process, who work with the same investment. They do the same thing that I do. They're just differently. Maybe they do them better. Maybe they can communicate better. But my point is I've removed that risk from the client. If something would happen to me yesterday, could get a phone call today from Wealthcare, and they would be able to answer questions, just like it was me. They would be able to go through my notes and go, "Oh yes, I see what was doing." You didn't go from John, the bond salesman, to Fred, the annuity salesman. You went from a person who runs a process, who has been very thoughtful on how they've set their clients up in financial planning, and and to be successful, a way to measure that and report on that to other people who can do the same thing, which I cannot underestimate the strength of working under that type of system. That is part of maturing and growing, is recognizing doing everything yourself is a fool's game. You want to be able to, you're the best when you can delegate your life away, and you are the least important part of it.
That's a interesting perspective. You're the best when you can delegate every part of your life away. That sounds very freeing.
Well, and there's something that many financial advisors or financial planners really should consider. And my thought being on that is your life has importance too, and you are not a slave to your job. Your job is to help people achieve their goals in life. But my hope is that each advisor out there has their own goals. So if your goals are to visit all 7 continents, then that should be part of your goal, and how you set up your practice. And if you're constantly having to be on the dial every single moment, following every single nuance of everything, then you're unable to live your magical life. And listen, it's important to be aware of what's going on and have access to your client stuff, to do the planning, to be involved in all these other parts. But it's also important to coach Little League baseball, and to be the parent that volunteers over at the school, and to be able to go over to your village or town and volunteer on some committee, or to serve on some important thing for your community. They need your expertise too, and it's part of being a good citizen. Part of financial planning is finding out where you want to put your values, and placing those values, and putting emphasis on those. You can do so much in your life if you at least articulate what you want to do, but also focus on the things that really matter and let go of the things that don't matter.
Awesome. So let's get back to kind of the nuts and bolts
Sure.
of growing a successful financial advisor practice. Can you tell us about your ideal client and why you chose that type of client?
Ultimately, my ideal client is a small business person, and they could be in a medical practice. I have another number of doctors that work that way. I have a number of small businesses that work that way. They may be just themselves. They could just be a consultant, that type of person. They also could have a few employees. So, for a person that is self-employed, has no employees, or maybe a husband and wife team, or a partnership type of team with spouses, you can set up single Ks. You can help them organize their benefits, how they want to run those things. You can set up with if they have employees, you can set up uh, 401ks, and we've got very cost-effective ways of doing that now. I mean, pretty much we've squeezed everything to the point where everything is at real cost now. In fact, that's one of the issues that's going on right now is because we've squeezed out so much of the expense of those things. Um, how can you make them more elegant for the client experience a little bit? And what I mean by that um, is there an easier way? Is there software or something like that to allow the client to make it easier for them? And yeah, we've got a lot of stuff. Everything kind of quickly works together at some level. Some things work better than others. But my ideal client is really um, usually these entrepreneurs. Um, have a lot. I've never had the benefit of having a company with lots and lots of employees. I'm sure it would be life changing for me, but I've done a pretty good job at picking, like I said, these small offices and things of that nature. And I work with their tax accountants, and I work with their insurance agents, and then all these other stuff too. And I help organize and kind of put it together for them.
Awesome. And how did you come to choose that type of client as your ideal client?
Well, I would love to say I wrote a business model, and it just happened to be that way. But like the things, your life is full of um, some focus, but also just some dumb luck. And I just happened to get a group of them, and they kept growing and kept growing. And listen, they're the most fascinating people in the world. They are at the highs and highs, but you have to have real conversations with them sometimes because not every small business works out the way that it should. So you're kind of y- you are a person that they can ask questions to, bounce ideas off of, and I can do some of the exploratory stuff where they may not want to explore it themselves. I can go out there and say, "Oh, what if we did this? What if we did that?" And I kind of, like I said, put it together. I kind of just picked up a few and went from there.
Nice. I've heard that from quite a few guests we've had on the show that small business owners, they are their ideal client, favorite type of client to serve. And not everyone kind of says it, but I sort of see a through line that you are a small business owner.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So you're like, I understand your pain and I want to help you with that pain. You're essentially helping people who are very similar, you know,
And
you know,
all the things that you're doing
similar
for
problems.
yourself, you're doing for them too. Um,
Mhm.
It's a lonely business being a small business owner, especially if you have a few employees, because all the risk is on you. And you have to make payroll every week or every month or whatever it is. You have to make sure the revenue comes in. You've got to make sure the projects. There's it's a very it's a joyous life in the sense that once the ball gets rolling, but it is an up and down life. I mean, imagine having um, big clients and the revenues coming in, and then all of a sudden you have different clients and the revenue's not the same. And the markets change all the time. You know, Tesla may be the EV of the moment, but it could easily be changed by someone coming in, offering the same thing, more benefits maybe. I mean, every business is always put at risk. In fact, in Chicago, where I work, I'm right down the street from Sears headquarters. If that is not the ultimate uh, cautionary tale of hubris, I mean, they get sliced apart by Walmart. You think that Walmart's say, well, Amazon's come in and just slice them apart too. It's like two big behemoths battling it out for you, but underneath it, there are smaller companies that are offering things that those two companies can't offer. Uh, and, a company like Sears, who struggled for 30, 40 years trying to find a business model, is barely hanging on. And you would be surprised if 10 years is even there's anything around. Although legacy companies are, and legacy companies like Discover and Allstate Insurance shows that businesses can evolve, it can change, even if their core business, what they were known for, fails.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you can see that going on with Google and ChatGPT now.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
what do we need
that's
Google
gonna that could
for?
be a big one, couldn't it? Certainly, it has Google on its thinking quite a bit about that. They brought out Bard and whether that will be competitive enough or not. So that is to kind of segue this into investments and stuff like that. And that's one of the reasons why, while you can certainly say that there's only a few stocks that did really, really well over a period of time, one of the reasons why I use index funds with my clients is because it's so difficult to choose the winners and the losers over this long period of time.
Mhm. And how much bigger can Apple really get? Like, the market itself is only 20 the American market is 20 trillion or something. It's like,
And
they can't get bigger than that, can they?
wait till somebody comes in and creates something that is different. Or Apple gets to the point where they have so much cash, which they do already, that they're having to gulp down companies that may not be as profitable. Is Disney one of the companies that keeps being purported that Apple is looking at, or Disney is shopping them? Would that make a stronger Apple? I don't know. I don't know. We are we we are at a really interesting time where we have these behemoths coming in. It's always fun to see these small companies come in and change the market. 30 years ago,
Mm,
we didn't have iPhones. My assumption is 10 to 15 years, we may not have iPhones either. There'll be something else that we're
yeah.
using. And
Well,
Apple wants to be the one to create it, but maybe not.
yeah. I mean, they did spend $100 billion on R&D just for their VR headset. So that tells you how important, market share and our predominant, once the phone goes away, what's after that? They're guessing VR, AR, MR,
I'm going to
right?
add to this. I was at a convention last year, and there was a company out there, and they were looking for people who wanted to study animation. So you're thinking like cartoons, and immediately you're like, oh, we'll have cartoons. Oh, no, 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 no. These people were going to the school, and what they were finding is textbooks and medical books and all this other stuff. They needed animations to like do the bot. When you do surgeries in the future, you could be doing animation. You could be doing your surgery through some kind of animation on you in real life because it may be
Oh,
the
whoa.
way of uh, making it safer or solving the issue easier or maybe less expensive. I don't know, but that that was one of the like I said, kids are thinking video games or cartoons, and all of a sudden they're working on surgery software.
Well, I'm very fascinated by all this AI stuff, and I also moonlight as a screenwriter, filmmaker, and there's AI animation tools coming out right now that you know give you almost like Pixar level graphics, from prompts. You just like write in what you want it to look like, and seeing this, I'm like, okay, well. I don't know how safe animators' jobs are, and at the same time, in a couple years, I don't know how safe actors' jobs are, or anyone who works on a set. Like, are we gonna need to shoot things on sets, or is it gonna become so photorealistic and effortless?
So I have a hobby. I review movies.
Oh,
And
awesome.
one of the things I will point on just what you just described is Pixar animation certainly could have a very dated look, especially if you're looking at the new Spider-Man Into the Multiverse movie that came out this year, or the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie that came out this year, who basically used a different type of animation style, not a non-Pixar animation style. And as far as practical effects versus the animated sort of CGI effects, the two movies that came out this year that would best show the difference would be Mission Impossible. They used a lot of practical effects. It was very exciting, and the Indiana Jones
Mhm.
film, where 80-year-old Harrison Ford is running around almost as a cartoon in these, and it just
Yeah.
didn't have the pop. And will it get to that point? Will we move from the uncanny valley of some of the original, animation part that looked real to a more realistic? Well, possibly, possibly. But there's something to say about Tom Cruise taking a motorcycle and jumping off a cliff 3 or 4 times to get that perfect shot. That really gives a thrill, and I think we may have a renaissance of practical effects. At least I'm
Mhm.
hoping so, because they were a lot more exciting.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, look at what Oppenheimer's doing. Uh, it made $900 million already on a $100 million budget, not counting marketing. It's like they purposely he's like, "There's not a frame of computer graphics in this movie." And you're like, "Okay, I wanna see it."
And really the place to compare that to is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which, like the Ant-Man film that came out earlier this year, it was like all in green screen. And
Mhm,
it's like watching cartoons with real people. And
mhm,
I just think that there's something that is, they're not trying to be flat. And listen, if we compared it to 10 years ago or 20 years ago, this was magic. And we're complaining over this wonderful world we live in where we get to play with all these toys. And, but
yeah,
really, the green screen world versus the practical world is something that we're going to be exploring for entertainment purposes for a long time.
mhm. Yeah, amen. We'll have to, I'll have to have you on my movie podcast sometime. We can continue this conversation. Awesome, but back to the topic at hand.
Sure.
What's the best way you have found to find these small business owner clients?
So I've been part of all sorts of things. I've been part of professional business leads groups. Listen, those business leads groups, I highly suggest for any small business owner, particularly in the financial services industry. In many ways, they're your board of directors, especially if you were together for a long period of time. I was part of one for 15 years. And, imagine 15 years worth of people starting small businesses, starting from whatever level they started from and building them and building books of business, whether they're doing carpentry or whether they're doing photography or selling homes or whatever they're doing. Listen, there's a lot of ups and downs during those times, and there's a lot of family issues going on, and uh, it's really good to have a group of people sitting around saying, "Have you thought about it this way?" Or let me reframe this for you, because being a small business owner is very lonely. And so that is the one place that I've been able to get clients. I was a chamber president for a long period of time. We had a real budget. We had real events going on. It was lovely in the sense that I got to know everybody in the community. I've served on committees. I was on a police pension board for over 10 years. I've served on business development board. I put together uh, big time um, business events at downtown places where, there's probably about $10 million or more project where um, lots and lots of people came. I was able to meet a lot of people during that time. I'm sorry, I coached soccer and announced football games and did all sorts of stuff. So those types of things were lovely, but they never brought me clients. The one thing that brought me clients was my business leads group. I do not have one currently. When I moved during COVID certainly changed things quite a bit. And once again, during that time, it was very good to get on a Zoom call with 20 other people and just talk a little bit about what they were doing and all the people selling houses and remodeling basements, they were doing quite well. And I was going on 10-mile walks and answering phone calls and, yeah, I have a driving range, interestingly enough, where I live in Illinois. So I go over and hit golf balls for an hour or so. Poorly, make sure I qualify that. But the nice part is that is a social outlet that has a business purpose, and, those are the most important things. The chamber stuff and all this other stuff, they were great to meet people, but they weren't necessarily good at developing for me for business. And also just there's a lot of wealthcare advisors across the nation. We we've got some Google groups that we communicate in, and people will ask questions. People will send stuff, all sorts of things. And the beauty is that other people will chime in. And in fact, I just had one the other day. I was talking, and it was a person who had inherited a tremendous amount of money, or at least a tremendous amount of money for that person. And they were getting roped into all sorts of things. And the advisor felt that they were a lot of, when I say scammy things, please understand we're judging here, but things that were not necessarily going to pan out the way the person thought they were going to pan out. And it's, you're an advisor and you can do a lot of counseling and stuff, but ultimately it's their resources. It's not yours. Savings is just a delayed goal. And if they choose to go this way, you can support them the best you can, even if it doesn't work. But the point is, it's so important never to work against the client, but to give them the best, when I say advice, if they ask for the advice, the best you can. But at the same time, it's their resources, their life. They get to live them. We are just the captain when they give us the ball and say, leaping.
Hey, amen. Awesome. Well, this has been really fun. We have a lot in common professionally and hobby
Oh,
wise,
yeah.
personally. Um, and I could definitely ask you questions for the rest of the afternoon for both of those topics, but I will respect your time. So I like to kind of wrap up the interview with an open-ended question, and you can take it in any direction that you like. And that question is, what are you working towards?
That is the most fascinating question. COVID certainly changed a lot of things. Um, I had children growing up. I have good clients. They've allowed me to be part of their lives. These were all things that were incredibly important to me and my wife at the time. Um, we both grew up with the divorced families. We didn't feel that we necessarily had um, the advantages that we wanted to give our children. And so we were the parents that were at the ball games. We were the ones who took them to the concerts. We were the ones who were at school events, and we helped in many, many ways. So my clients, I certainly thank tremendously like for that. But COVID happened, and a lot of people are in this kind of weird moment where they're reevaluating what's important to them. And that's okay. Because if anything, this has shown you is to focus on things that you really, really value. And if it's traveling, take that time to travel is now. It's not necessarily in the future. I mean, you certainly could. Um, the other part is I work with older people, and there's this window of time between where you think you retired and when you just don't have, you can't do it like that way anymore. By the way, I still have a 94-year-old friend of mine, and she travels all the time with her kids. But there's this window where you'll take that trip to Australia and you go, I'm never going on a plane trip that far again. So if you want to be with your family during the holidays, then make that the important part. Then if it's getting the place at the beach and inviting all the kids and their grandkids together, just make it easy for them. Just get them there so that you can do the one thing you can do, and that's make an impression on people's lives. That's what we all want to do. We all want, we're all memories at some point, and those memories just need to be good ones. It's not always about having the most money or the most toys, but it could be about, having the time together that you want. So maybe you can't sit on the 50-yard line of the football game on Sunday, but if you had all your friends over or your family over and you cooking out and you're watching the game together, that's success too. So make sure you truly measure success. We all have this ideal life we want to live in our heads, and we all have acceptable lives. Those are both successful lives. Do what you can. An advisor can help you get more of those ideals. That's what we can do. We take you and we supercharge you. And I hope that's helpful for you.
Yeah, that was great. That was beautiful. Where can our audience find out more about you and even your movie podcast?
All right. So you can always find me on LinkedIn, Christopher Hessenflow. You can find me on Twitter, Chip Hessenflow. You can, if you want to listen to me, we do a movie and a book review podcast called Too Much Scrolling. We've been doing it for 10 years. You can always look that up on your smart speaker. But certainly, you reach out to me by email or anything. And if I can't find you an answer, I'll be happy to kind of point you in an area. Our clients have blessed us with the resources to help others. And many times we just need some general questions answered in a general way. Like, do I pay off my student loan first, or do I get my employee benefits? And those are legitimate questions. They may not be enough to hire an advisor full time, but that's a question that a person like me or someone in your community could certainly answer for you.
Awesome. Well, Chip, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and our listeners today. This was great. Definitely gonna have to have you on the movie podcast sometime because it sounds like you have some equally strong opinions to mine, and I would love to hear them. So for all the listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Keep on growing out there, everybody. See ya.